Yo, what is going on, guys? Flashverse here, and welcome back to another video on The Fly Season 8. And this will be my review and breakdown for The Fly Season 8 Episode 3, titled Armageddon Part 3. And once again, we got another really strong episode for the season of The Flash. Just giving you guys my quick initial thoughts on this episode before I go more in detail with this review and breakdown. I really enjoyed this episode. This was probably the best we've ever seen Iris in such a long time. She was just such an amazing character, and she had such an amazing storyline with Dion, with her investigating the death of Joe. I found that really intriguing, and I was just really invested in this storyline all the way throughout the episode. Despero just continues to amaze me with just how much of a great villain he is. He's so threatening, and I just love it. You can really tell that the actor just gives it his all, and it's honestly perfect. He's definitely my third favorite main villain on the show, and he tops Bloodwork in my opinion. He's just great, and we've only seen him for 3 episodes, so we know he's just going to get better and better with these remaining 2 episodes. Probably my favorite thing about the episode was Black Lightning. Seeing him return and help Barry was just great. And wow, their character interactions together was just so good. We had some answers to the Injustice Protocol as well, and we got some really emotional moments between the two, and we had some really great and powerful scenes in general. Jefferson just trying to calm Barry down and, connect with him really just pushes their friendship to another level, and I really loved it. But holy crap, probably the most insane of all, not only did we get some answers in regards to who is causing Armageddon, but wow, that ending we gotta talk about as well. This season is not feeling like the Flash we've watched for the past couple of years. It feels so different. We finally have great mystery being used once again. We finally have intense scenes, and we have all the characters having something to do. I just love it. The tone feels so different as well. It takes me back to those OG Flash moments, and I'm just really invested in this Armageddon story, and I cannot wait to see what's in store for these last 2 episodes. I did have some issues with the episode, however, one of them is a huge issue, and I was really frustrated with it, but the other one is just a simple minor issue. But also, I really wasn't a fan of the fact that there were just way too many side character scenes compared to Barry's scenes, and I was just much more invested in the Flash and Black Lightning stuff. So I did zone out quite a bit when it came to like other characters such as like Cecile, for example. I just don't really care, although she did have a pretty interesting storyline. But before I actually get into the breakdown itself, I will give a spoiler alert because this is a review and breakdown after all. So I'll be going over some major spoilers which you certainly wouldn't want to hear from me. So if you guys haven't seen the episode, go watch the episode and come back later for this review and breakdown. But for those who are staying, be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way. Okay, so the episode kicks off right where we left off, where we have Barry and Jefferson in the Hall of Justice, and we have Barry mentioning the word injustice, and we find out that injustice is essentially a protocol created by the Arrowverse Justice League members in case one of them went rogue, and Black Lightning questions why this was brought up, and he's also hesitant with following through with the injustice protocol. We do have him trying to calm Barry down because Barry's obviously stressed. He's really confused and he's just panicking. Barry just continues to panic and begins to tell Jefferson about his blackouts and how he attacked his friends and innocent people. So Jefferson is responsible for having to essentially get rid of Barry's powers due to the Injustice Protocol. Black Lightning is also hesitant with this plan because if he follows through with the protocol, the Flash loses his abilities forever. It's just gone. So Barry must be 100% certain about this, and Barry does also tell Jefferson about Joe. But I thought this was a great opening scene, and it just got me really intrigued about what's going to happen with this storyline, and their interactions with each other was just great as well. We then head over to Despero in the speed lab as he tries to scan the city for Barry, and we do have Cecile mentioning that she's able to sense Despero doing stuff, so they will need to find Barry before he does. This is when Team Flash start to talk about what is happening with Barry and his memory loss, such as him not being able to remember that Joe died, and this is when Iris comes in and mentions that Barry could potentially be right about the fact that Joe isn't dead, there is something wrong, and this is when Iris shows footage during the time of Joe's death, and we do find out that there's like a missing frame in the video which just shows Joe just randomly disappearing from the scene, and he didn't really get, run over by the train. So that was pretty interesting as well. It did really, set the storyline up for Iris, which was such a great storyline for the episode. Cecile is obviously in denial of this investigation, which Iris wants to follow through with, and we did get this argument between Cecile and Iris. Now, one issue I had over here was that Cecile was really out of character. She felt really out of character, and yes, you could argue that she's like this because of Joe's death, which would be a reasonable explanation, but for Iris to literally show concrete evidence that Joe did not end up getting run over by the train, and Cecile still being completely in denial of it, I found pretty ridiculous. That being said, however, it was a very well acted scene between the two. This is what results to Iris and Allegra working together to investigate that scene shown in the footage. Meanwhile, Cecile, Caitlin, and Chester come up with a plan to find Barry before Despero does. We then have Iris and Allegra going to the train station to pursue their investigation, and this is when Iris sees some weird particles floating near the tracks. Allegra is obviously unable to see it because we know that the reason Iris is able to see this is due to her time sickness. But this is when Allegra uses her abilities and suggests that they could potentially go to see the person who keeps all the footage. And this is when they go to see the security guy, in which the security guy essentially shows a similar footage. However, this time, it doesn't look like Joe just randomly disappeared out of the frame. It actually shows Joe getting run over. So I thought that was very interesting, and this did really keep me very intrigued throughout. But obviously, when Iris sees that, she's quite bothered, and she does feel that she was in the wrong, and her and Allegra then leave the station. We then have Cecile going to the bar in order to get the help of Rosa Dillon, aka the Top, and they need to essentially combine their abilities so that Cecile is able to track down where Barry is at. We do also have Chester building some sort of a device which does help out with this tracking process. It was a very interesting way to utilize the Top for the episode, but once again, it was very frustrating to see how out of character Cecile felt. So I wasn't really much of a fan of this. We do then head over to the Hall of Justice, where we have Barry essentially like building this device which does help Jefferson steal Barry's powers. And once again, we did get some really great scenes between the two, where Jefferson does talk about someone who he has lost, and that was a cop as well, which resulted him into feeling guilty towards what happened. I didn't finish Black Lightning, so I'm not sure about who this was. I'm still on like season 1 or something, but it was essentially just Jefferson trying to connect with Barry and trying to talk him out of this plan, because you can clearly see that Jefferson doesn't want to do this. You can easily see it, but Barry is absolutely certain that he wants Jefferson to follow through with this protocol, which is when Jefferson uses his abilities to slowly take Barry's speed, and we do see Barry in like agonizing pain as his speed is slowly being taken away from him. And I just hate this. I find it absolutely ridiculous. I hate what they did with this, because if you were going to make Barry leveled up only to take his powers away 2 episodes later, what was the point in doing it in the first place? It's so frustrating, and they just continue to nerf Barry, which is just so stupid and so repetitive. It's so annoying. Us fans were loving this version of Barry we've seen for just 2 episodes, only for the writers to take a step back and go, nope, we're gonna nerf him again. Just why? It's really annoying. It really is. And honestly, I don't think that Barry's gonna get that level up anymore. Like, he's not gonna get it after Armageddon. We're just gonna have Barry like this all the way through. That's why I'm predicting, because knowing the writers, that's probably something that they would do. But hopefully he does get it back. I'm still gonna hold hope because we did not finish all 5 parts yet, but I'm pretty sure that he's not going to get it back. We then have Allegra in the Citizen showing Iris some evidence about a lot of coincidences taking place with this train, which was quite odd, and she does mention that someone is definitely pulling the strings, which has caused Joe's death. But this is when Iris continues to see these floating particles, and once again, we do know that this is something related to her time sickness, and this is what leads to her going to this train station so Dion can meet up with her over there instead of the speed lab. Dion does obviously come to Iris because they did have a time sickness meeting scheduled. But yeah, Dion wonders what is happening, in which Iris mentions something about a couple of particles. So she wants Dion to have a look, and Dion does essentially use his abilities to check what's going on, in which Dion does mention that he doesn't see any trace of anyone messing with the timeline. And this is when Iris asks Dion to undo the time sickness treatment Dion performed on her off screen in order for Iris to properly analyze what's going on. And this is when Iris is able to see these particles everywhere around the area, so clearly someone is messing with the timeline, and Dion did say that someone has tapped into the negative still force, and we could obviously assume who has done this from the ending of the episode. But continuing on from Cecile's story, we have Chester finishing off the device which can help Cecile track down where Barry is, in which when they try it for the first time, it doesn't work. Cecile can't control her abilities due to these emotional connections she's having with Joe, but obviously Top was easily able to do it. But this is when we find out that Despero has been watching Team Flash all along, because he knows really well that Team Flash will lead him right to where Barry is. We do then have the particle accelerator in Star Labs being turned on again, and this is so that Despero can essentially use it to essentially charge himself up. I guess that's what it looked like at least. But we then go back to Cecile and Top, who try their experiments again after Chester fixes the device, in which this time it works. However, Despero is behind them, and I found this scene just so badass when he just blasts Top away, and then he uses his third eye to scan Cecile, in which he then finds out exactly where Barry is at. We do then have Barry not revealing a couple of details to Jefferson beforehand, such as Despero telling Barry about this Armageddon future, and we do then have this really great line where Jefferson talks about the famous line which he has, which is, "Where's the future? It's right here." And I found their bonding really great, and Jefferson does try to reason with Barry, continuing to try and, talk him out of this plan, because Jefferson clearly doesn't like it, but Barry is absolutely certain that he wants his powers gone, otherwise the future is at stake, the world is at stake, and Jefferson won't be able to keep his family safe, for example, and this is what, triggers Jefferson a lot. But Barry does go crazy, and then we get this really cool short fight scene between Black Lightning and the Flash. I love how Jefferson was able to control Barry's lightning and throw it against Barry. I did find it weird how Barry got hit by that lightning, but I will let it slide due to him losing that level up he's had. But otherwise, if he still had that level up, he would have easily been able to mess Jefferson up, in which technically he still does over here. But he shouldn't have been hit by that lightning. But again, I'm going to let it slide because of him losing that level up. But we had this absolutely emotional scene where Barry gets thrown into Oliver's suit display, and obviously Jefferson gets thrown onto it as well, and it just shatters. And then we see Oliver's bow and quiver on the ground, with Barry being reminded of Oliver once again and the sacrifice he made. Jefferson does make this amazing line about how Oliver was no quitter, and how Oliver knew that Barry was the best of them, once again making this dynamic just so incredible. But yeah, the conflict is resolved. However, Despero arrives and he's about to kill Barry. This is when Iris and Dion arrive, and they try to talk to Despero about someone pulling the strings and messing with the timeline, but obviously Despero doesn't believe it. But just before he's about to deliver the final blow on Barry, Black Lightning does hold off Despero to give Barry enough time to run away. And this is when we find out that Barry wants to travel to the future to find out who causes Armageddon. And this is when we have Dion essentially giving Barry some temporal boost, if you will. I can't really remember what it was because I didn't note it down. But we then have Barry arriving at 2031, and we do then see Barry going inside this West party, which is obviously hosted by Iris, and it's a private event. But Barry goes inside. He sees Alex Danvers, who's obviously a returning character for the episode. He sees Ryan Choi and obviously Ryan Wilder, aka Batwoman, and they're all listening up to someone talking. Now, I do have a nitpick over here because this is 2031, so this is 10 years after where we are right now. So wouldn't they have at least some strands of gray hair or something like that? But anyways, as I said, that's just a mini nitpick. But this someone talking is Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash, who is getting married to Iris West. What the heck? This was just such an insane WTF cliffhanger. I was just like, what the heck is going on? But we have everyone turning around, looking at Barry almost in fear, and I just love how Eobard is just smiling at the back. I just found that really hilarious. But what is happening over here? Obviously, I will do an ending explain video explaining this in more detail tomorrow maybe. But has Thawne broken the timeline so that he is essentially the Flash and Barry is the Reverse Flash? Could it also be that Thawne deliberately made the Flash look like he went rogue and he's acting as a hero and saves everyone? Kind of like the season 2 thing with Hunter Zolomon and him also being disguised as Jay Garrick, kind of that thing. But regardless, I'm so interested to see what's going to happen in these remaining 2 episodes. Obviously, it is going to be fixed. We know that for sure. But I am so interested to see how it becomes fixed. How will Barry fix this from happening? But yeah, overall, this was another great episode of The Flash. It was really good. However, it's definitely not as good as last episode. It's far from as good as last episode. Episode 2 was just insane. However, this season has been very consistent so far. Obviously, as I said, I did have some issues with this episode, but overall, it was pretty enjoyable, and I will give this episode an 8 out of 10. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Be sure to tell me in the comment section down below what your favorite scene in the episode was, and also be sure to tell me how you guys felt about this episode as well. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.